Okay, welcome. I'm going to talk about, in this session, our ultrasonic diffusers. We're about to mark down all our ultrasonic diffusers. However, as we're marking them down, this will mean they won't have any warranty with them, okay? Because we're trying to discontinue the line because we need more room in our warehouse, and these products are quite large in their box and they take up a lot of warehouse space. And it's not one of our main products. Our main products are candle jars and diffuser bottles, and we need that space to be able to turn over and have more options for our candle jars and our diffuser bottles, which is why we're running out our beautiful ultrasonic diffusers. We've sold them for a few years, but I thought it was important to highlight in this video a few end user bad habits, okay? So over the years, as we've sold these units, typically very few become faulty without a user error, okay? If a unit is faulty, it will be faulty straight out of the box. So if you're going to purchase one of these, once you buy it, plug it all in, make sure everything works straight away. And in this video, I'm going to show you some of the most common user errors that cause these units to stop working, okay? So let's get started. Number one, please make sure you read the installation and instruction manual, okay? Really important information on that. These units do require a little bit of cleaning and maintenance if you want them to last a long time. The ones I've got in my house have been going for 3 to 4 years, okay? However, I'm somebody who doesn't like a lot of fragrance, so I'll only put 1 drop of fragrance in when I'm using it, and I'll use essential oils. Clients that I know that use a lot of the candle fragrance oils, which you can, but some of them are very thick and they use way too much of them. And what happens is the fragrance, when you put too much fragrance in these diffusers, the fragrance oil is so thick, and remember, oil and water don't mix properly. So if you leave the water and oil stagnant over several days, the thick oil will drop down into the inner diffuser base, and a lot of that fragrance oil will slowly eat away at some of the plastic mechanisms inside, and that will stop your diffuser from working over time. Now, that could happen after a month or two. If you're a heavy user and you're using this a lot with a lot of thick and a lot of too much fragrance, then that can happen, you know, just within the first 3 to 6 months of use. So get in the habit of cleaning out, get a little, an earbud, clean out all that excess oil on a regular basis to keep your inner unit in good condition, to give you the longevity of use that you want, okay? So that's number one. One of the biggest reasons why these units will stop working is because the user is using too much fragrance. They're leaving water, so they're leaving water and oil just stagnant. So they might not put it on every day. They might forget, and maybe once a week they turn it on. Well, if you're leaving water stagnant with oil, that oil is going to seep down into the inner reservoir and slowly eat away at some of the plastic mechanisms inside and stop working. So if you're not using the diffuser, then you must empty that base. Leave it empty if it's not being used. Don't leave it with water and oil inside, okay? And it becomes stagnant. All right, so that's the big one. That's one of the main reasons. A second reason that they'll stop, the second most common reason they'll stop working has to do with users and how they fill it up. So look, and I will tell you, this happened to me, okay? So when I first had it, it comes with this little measuring jug, and the instructions say, you know, make sure you fill it up with the measuring cup and don't fill it past the little red guide on the inner reservoir there. And I just felt it was a bit annoying, like taking my measuring cup over and doing that. So I would just take it to the tap and, you know, you put it under the tap and fill it up. But occasionally when I was distracted, I'd put too much in and it'd overflow. And my unit stopped working after some time, and I contacted the manufacturers, and they told me that was because this is an air inlet, and essentially water is not allowed to get in here. If you have a look inside, you can actually see the sort of the motherboard, the computer board that operates this unit through the little hole there. So essentially, if that's under the tap and it spills over, water can spill down and get in to the water inlet section, the air inlet section. And if it does that, it will stop working over time as well. So it can work that way. It can also happen by, let's say I've got water in here, okay? And let's say I'm going to tip it out. So if you're being a good user and you're tipping out if you know you're not going to use it and you've got water left in there and you want to tip it out, you'll tip it out like so. Now, tipping it out this side where the red guide is not such a good idea, because it can also have water dribble down if it doesn't tip out properly, and then water dribbles down and gets in the air inlet section right there as well. Okay, so that's another way that water gets in there. Okay, a third way that water gets in there is when we overfill it. So let's say I'm going to push the boundaries here and I'm going to fill it up to the top, which is above the red marker. Okay, if I'm pushing it above the red marker, then what's going to happen is, let's see, let's turn this one on. Actually, let's see that I'm tipping it out on the other side of the marker of the air inlet. So let's put this one in because I've got it plugged in. So if I do that, now what happens is, where's my little on plug? There we go. Because it's over full, then water can actually, instead of it coming all the way out here, it's bubbling up over the edges. So it's bubbling up over the edges and it's dribbling down the side, okay? So by overfilling the inner above that red marker will also cause the unit to stop working over time, because water is going to, it's too full, water is going to come up over the sides, or even condensation is going to come up over the sides and get into that air inlet section, okay? So, and then the other component why it stops working sometimes when water gets in there is, and I've done this too a few times, I have to admit, let me turn this off. So I've gone and filled up my unit and I've actually forgotten to put my reservoir cover back on. So what I do is, that could just be off to the side. I filled it up, I'm not thinking, that goes on, and then that starts happening. Now with something like this, I can see that I've made an error somehow, and now I've got water going everywhere. Oh, let's turn that off. And see, water spills out all over the place. So water could have easily got in the air inlet section just in that, 30-second demonstration. But what happens is, if I do it with something like this big one here, let's get that water out. I'm going to put it in this big one. Sometimes this big one, you don't even know. Like I had one of these at home, and it was going. And because it's so high, it doesn't spit out. And so, I had it on for, probably about 20 minutes before water started pillaging out of the bottom. Then I took it off and realized that I didn't have my cover on. Okay, so that's another reason how water can get into areas it's not supposed to, and therefore it stops the unit from working. Okay. Now, if you're lucky, sometimes if water has got in there, sometimes it can actually dry out. It might not work for a little while, but after it dries out, after a week or so, I actually have known them to start working again. All right, so that's water getting into the air inlet and forgetting to put the cover on, okay, overfilling the unit, which is why you should always use your little cup that you get with it, because this little cup is measured perfectly for the amount of water that should go in it. Okay, I think that's about all there is. So when water, if you've misused it in some way, with some of the examples that I've shown you here, what's going to happen is this. So this is one where it stopped working. This one was actually caused through fragrance, too much fragrance being used. And we can usually see evidence of that when we look inside. So what will happen is you'll put water in, and then one day and you'll try and put it on and it won't stay on. Oh, maybe I'm using the wrong one. Okay, usually it won't stay on, and the light will come on for a second and then it'll turn off again. Oh, maybe it's this one. Running out of water. Yeah, so it is this one. Okay, so essentially you'll fill it up, you'll try and turn it on, and each time you press the button, it'll just turn off again. Okay, so that means something on the inside has got water or fragrance has gotten into the base somehow and destroyed some of the mechanisms that keep that going, that keep that on. Okay. Occasionally you might have a power supply that might be faulty, and but again, that's going to be faulty directly out of the box. It's not something that's going to become faulty over time. Okay, so again, when you buy a unit on this run out special, to make sure that you unpack it straight away, plug it in, and make sure it's working. Now, I should also say that you've got to plug it in and make sure that you put water in the reservoir, because if you don't, so this one's got no water in the reservoir, and that actually shouldn't stay on. Oh, there we go. It had a little bit left. So there's no water in the reservoir, so therefore it's not going to stay on. Okay, so make sure that when you get it, add some water and then test everything, make sure it's working. Then if you keep it in good stead and you make sure you don't use too much fragrance, you don't leave the water stagnant with oil in it over days or weeks, and you keep it empty when not used, so you make sure there's, no water or oil in there if it's not in use. And if you also make sure you don't overfill it, never forget to put the lid on when you're using it, and to prevent water from getting in the air inlet section. They're the two main reasons why these units will stop working over time. One last reason is this habit. So sometimes people, they're wanting to put water in here and they haven't got two hands, so they're trying to take this off without using their other hand by pulling that off. So sometimes it just drops down, so they know they'll pull that off and then they'll just drop that down. If you do that too many times, again, that sort of use and impact on the bench all the time, just letting it drop down by itself, is going to cause the unit to stop working over time. Okay, so it's like anything, you've just got to take care of it. You've got to follow the instructions that you get. Don't put too much of something in it, and you'll get long time use out of these beautiful, beautiful products. They are so nice to use. I'm just going to show you this. You would just add 2 drops of fragrance. See that? That's all you put in there. Get our lid on. Get our cover on. and bam, we're away. They're so beautiful. So these will have this is all listed online. It'll steam like this constantly if you press it once, okay? But these units, they'll stop working after I think it's 2 to 4 hours of continuous use. This has got a bigger base in it. So this one I think is 4 hours of continuous use. And I think this one is 2.5 to 3 hours of continuous use. So even if water is inside, it's going to shut down automatically after a certain period of time, okay? So if you don't want it steaming all the time, then press it again and it steams for I think 30 seconds, and then the steam stops for 30 seconds. Then it comes back on after 30 seconds, then it turns off. And it just helps the diffuser, or I guess the contents of the reservoir, lasts a bit longer, because if it's always on, then you might find yourself always having to fill it up. Because the other thing that'll happen is if the inner water contents of the reservoir gets used up, then, so as you can see there, see it's just stopped. Now it's going to stop and the light will stay on, so letting you know it's still working, but it's just off for 30 seconds and it'll come back on in a minute. So the other reason it'll go off automatically is when there's no water left. So if it's in use and all the water disappears, then it'll turn itself off as well, okay? So you should get in on this. We've got quite a few that we're going to run out at a very, very cheap price, but please be mindful, there will be no warranty on these unless it's faulty directly out of the box, okay? So if you buy one of these and you get it and it's not working directly out of the box, of course we are going to cover and replace it. However, if it's been in use for 6 months and all of a sudden it stops working, there won't be any warranty for replacement on that, because I will say 9 times out of 10, it has to do with user error almost every time, okay? So I hope you're gonna love these as much as I do. I really love having these on. They create such a beautiful ambience at night. So yeah, I hope you get one. So they're going to go quick. So keep an eye out for them. All right. Well, thanks for your time and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you. Bye.